came to make a horror film. A film crew, a director, an abandoned building. 2 days of filming, everything planned, everything prepared. Then they watched the first recording. At the end of the corridor, behind the actor, stood a figure nobody had put there. Then the men sent to investigate appeared from a staircase that led nowhere near where they had been. Then the elevator spoke. The 10th floor is waiting. Then old footage arrived on the director's phone. Take 1, 11 years ago. The same building, the same corridor, and the director in the old footage had his face. They came to make a horror movie. They did not understand that the building had been making one for 11 years about them. Welcome to the unseen hour. The building had been empty for 11 years. It stood in the middle of the city, surrounded by offices, restaurants, and traffic. From the outside, there was nothing unusual about it. That was exactly why director Adrian Cole chose it. He was filming his next horror movie, and he wanted one location that looked real, not a studio, not a set, a real abandoned building. The property had been closed for maintenance years earlier, and the owners had finally agreed to let Adrian's production team use it for 2 days. Only 2 days. The crew arrived early in the morning. By noon, cameras were installed on the 9th and 10th floors. Lights were positioned. Props were arranged. The actors rehearsed their scenes. Everything was normal. At least, until they watched the first recording. Adrian stood behind the monitor with his arms folded. Play it again. The assistant rewound the footage. On the screen, the lead actor walked slowly down the 10th floor corridor. The scene was supposed to show him searching for someone. He stopped beside an old door, turned around, and looked toward the camera. Adrian frowned. The footage stopped. Everyone gathered around the monitor. "What?" the cameraman asked. Adrian pointed at the far end of the corridor. "Who's that?" Nobody answered. At the end of the hallway, behind the actor, stood a man. He was barely visible, just a dark figure near the wall. The assistant director looked toward the actual corridor. It was empty. Adrian said, "Zoom in." The image became blurry, but the figure was still there. A man, standing completely still, watching the actor. Adrian turned toward the crew. "Who went upstairs?" "No one," the production manager replied. "The actors?" "They're all here." Adrian looked at the monitor again. "Send 2 people up." A camera assistant and a lighting technician volunteered. They climbed the staircase. Everyone watched the security monitor as they disappeared toward the 10th floor. 1 minute passed, then 2. Adrian called them. "Are you on 10? A voice came through the radio. "Yes." "Do you see anyone?" "No." Adrian looked at the monitor. "Check the corridor." 2 men walked through the hallway. Nothing. The figure wasn't there. Adrian sighed. "Come back." A few seconds later, everyone heard footsteps approaching from the staircase. The crew waited. They expected the 2 men to appear from the staircase leading down from the 10th floor. But they didn't. Instead, the 2 men suddenly appeared from the staircase leading up from the 8th floor. Everyone froze. Adrian stared at them. "Stop." The 2 men looked confused. They walked toward the crew. Adrian pointed behind them. "Where did you come from?" The lighting technician frowned. "The 10th floor." "No." Adrian's voice became sharper. "You came from the 8th." The 2 men looked looked at each other, then back at Adrian. We went to 10. The production manager checked the building plan. The staircase they had just emerged from connected the 8th floor to the 9th. It did not connect to the 10th. Adrian looked at the two men. "How did you get here?" Neither man had an answer. Then the camera operator suddenly spoke. "Director." Adrian turned. The operator was staring at the monitor. "Look." The footage from the 10th floor camera was still running. On the screen, the two men were standing in the 10th floor corridor. At that exact moment, Adrian looked at the real men standing in front of him, then back at the screen. The two versions were identical. Same clothes, same positions, same expressions. But the men standing beside Adrian were looking at the monitor. The men on the screen were looking directly at the camera. Then one of them slowly raised his hand and pointed towards something behind the camera. Adrian turned around. There was nothing there. When he looked back at the monitor, the 10th floor corridor was empty, except for one thing. Written across the dusty wall behind the camera were 4 words. "You shouldn't have come." Nobody moved. The message on the wall was impossible. The building had been closed for years. The wall had been cleaned that morning. Adrian had watched the crew prepare that exact corridor. There had been nothing written there. "Turn off the cameras," he said. The cameraman reached for the controls. Before he could press anything, one of the monitors went black, then another, then another. Only the camera from the 10th floor remained. Adrian stared at it. The corridor on the screen was empty. Then the camera slowly moved. Not physically. The image itself seemed to turn. It pointed toward the staircase. Adrian whispered, "Who's controlling that camera?" "No one," the cameraman answered. The camera showed the staircase. Then something appeared at the bottom. A person, walking upward. Adrian leaned closer. It was one of their actors. The problem was, the actor was standing beside them. Everyone turned. The actor was still there, looking at the monitor. The image continued. The second version of him climbed the stairs. One step at a time, he reached the 9th floor, stopped, and looked directly into the camera. Then he smiled. The actor standing beside Adrian suddenly whispered, "That's not me." The monitor went black. Adrian ordered everyone downstairs. No arguments, no filming. They packed their equipment as quickly as possible. But when they reached the lobby, the security guard stopped them. "Where are you going?" Adrian looked at him. "We're leaving." The guard frowned. "You can't." "Why?" The guard pointed toward the entrance. "The doors are locked." Adrian walked over. He pulled the handle. Nothing. The guard tried his key. The key wouldn't turn. He looked confused. "This doesn't make sense." Adrian checked his phone. No signal. Every phone in the crew showed the same thing. No service. Then the elevator made a sound. Ding. The doors opened. Everyone looked inside. The elevator display showed. 10 Adrians stared at it. They were in the lobby. The elevator should have been on the ground floor. The production manager pressed the button. The doors closed. A few seconds later, the elevator opened again. The display showed 8 nobody had touched anything. Adrian stepped backward. "Nobody gets in." The doors remained open. Then the elevator speaker crackled. A voice came through. A man's voice. Calm, almost bored. "The 10th floor is waiting." The doors closed. The elevator disappeared upward. The The security guard finally managed to open a side exit. Everyone rushed outside. They stood on the street. Traffic moved normally. People walked past them. The city was exactly as it had been that morning. Adrian looked back at the building. Nothing seemed unusual. Then his phone received a notification. New video file received. He opened it. The file name was Take 1, 11 years ago. Adrian's face changed. He played it. The video showed the same building, the same 10th floor corridor, but the picture quality was old. A different film crew was standing there. An actor was preparing for a scene, and behind the camera stood a young man. Adrian recognized him. It was the security guard, but he looked 20 years younger. Adrian looked toward the guard. "What's this?" The guard saw the screen. His face went pale. "I've never seen that." Adrian turned the phone toward him. The guard stared at the video, then whispered, "I remember." "Remember what?" The guard looked at the building. That film crew disappeared. Adrian's expression hardened. "What?" "All of them." The guard swallowed. 11 years ago. Adrian looked at the old footage again. The director in the video was standing beside the same camera. The crew was preparing the same scene. And then Adrian noticed something. The old director turned toward the camera. For a fraction of a second, his face became visible. Adrian froze, because he looked exactly like Adrian himself. Not similar, not close, exactly the same. The video suddenly ended. Then another file appeared. Take 2, 11 years ago. Adrian didn't want to open it, but he did. The footage showed the old director walking toward the staircase. He looked directly into the camera and said, "If you're watching this, don't go to the 9th floor." The screen went black. Adrian looked at the building, then at the security guard. "Why?" The guard didn't answer. Adrian stepped closer. "Why shouldn't we go to the 9th floor?" The guard finally looked at him and said, "Because that's where they came back from." Adrian looked at the security guard. "Where did they come back from?" The guard didn't answer immediately. He kept staring at the building. "Years ago," he finally said, "the police searched every floor, and they found the crew." Adrian's expression changed. "Alive?" The guard shook his head. "No." Nobody spoke. Then Adrian noticed something. "You said they came back." The guard looked at him. "They came back on camera." Adrian opened the old footage again. The same corridor, the same staircase, the same impossible movement between floors. Then the guard pointed at the screen. "Watch the background." Adrian slowed the footage. At first, nothing. Then he saw it. A man standing at the end of the corridor. The same dark figure they'd seen in their own recording. The guard whispered, "That wasn't there when we filmed it." Adrian looked at him. "What happened to the director?" The guard's face tightened. "He disappeared." "And the crew?" "Same." Adrian looked at the building again. "Then why is this place still standing?" The guard didn't answer. Instead he said, "Because nobody could prove anything happened here." Adrian suddenly remembered something. The first footage, the figure, the writing on the wall. He opened the current recording again. The message was still there. "You shouldn't have come." But now there was something underneath it. A second line. Something that hadn't been there before. Adrian zoomed in. His face went pale. It said, "You have already been here." The cameraman stepped back. "That isn't possible." Adrian didn't respond. He opened the building's security records. There was only one entry for their production team. Today, 7:42 a.m. Then another entry appeared. Today, 7:42 a.m. Same names, Same IDs, same arrival time. The second list was marked, returned. Adrian stared at the screen. Returned from where? The security guard whispered. The 9th floor. Adrian decided to go back inside. Everyone protested, but he had one question he couldn't ignore. If the old crew had disappeared, and their footage still existed, who had been recording it? He took the cameraman and the production manager with him. The rest stayed outside. They entered the building. The elevator was dead, so they used the stairs. They reached the 8th floor, then the 9th. Everything looked normal. Too normal. The corridor was empty. Adrian walked slowly toward the 10th floor staircase. Halfway there, he stopped. There was a door on the wall. A door none of them had seen before. Above it was a small metal number, 9.5. The production manager stared. There is no 9.5 floor. Adrian reached for the handle. The cameraman grabbed his arm. Director, don't. Adrian looked at him. Why? The cameraman pointed behind him. At the end of the corridor stood the 2 crew members they'd sent upstairs earlier. The lighting technician and the camera assistant. They were standing completely still. Adrian called out, "Are you okay?" They didn't answer. He took a step forward. They took a step backward. Adrian stopped. They stopped. He moved again. They moved again, like reflections. Then the lighting technician finally spoke, but his voice sounded strangely distant. "Director." "Yes?" "You need to leave." Adrian frowned. "Why?" The man looked toward the door marked 9.5. "Because we've already filmed the ending." Adrian felt his stomach drop. "What ending?" The 2 men looked at each other. Then the camera assistant said, "Yours." The lights went out. Complete darkness. Then Adrian heard a camera shutter. Click, another, click, and another. When the emergency lights came back on, the 2 men were gone. The door marked 9.5 was open. Inside was a film set, lights, cameras, props, a monitor, and on the monitor, Adrian saw himself standing in the room, exactly where he was standing now, but the footage showed something else. Behind him stood the entire missing film crew and the old director. The old director slowly raised his hand, pointed at Adrian, and said, "Cut." The monitor went black, then the door slammed shut, and from behind it, someone whispered, "Take 2." The door slammed shut. Adrian stood frozen in the darkness. Then the emergency lights came back on. The corridor was empty. The door marked 9.5 was gone. Only a plain concrete wall remained. The production manager stared at it. "Where did the door go?" Adrian didn't answer. He was looking at the camera. The camera was still recording. The red light was blinking. He walked toward it. "Turn it off." The cameraman pressed the button. Nothing happened. He tried again. Nothing. Then the camera's screen suddenly displayed a live image. Adrian looked at it. The screen showed the 9th floor corridor, but the camera wasn't pointing at the corridor. It was pointing directly at them. And on the screen, there were 5 people standing behind Adrian. Adrian slowly turned around. Nobody. He looked back at the screen. 5 people, the missing crew, standing silently behind him. Then one of them raised a hand, pointing upward. Adrian looked toward the 10th floor staircase. "Get everyone out." The production manager ran toward the stairs. Adrian followed. They reached the 10th floor. The corridor was exactly as they'd left it. Cameras, lights, props, everything. But there was one difference. The monitor was already playing. Adrian walked toward it. The screen showed the scene they had filmed that morning. The actor walked down the corridor, stopped, turned toward the camera. Then something happened that Adrian had never seen before. The actor stepped out of the scene. He walked directly toward the camera and said, "Director, you forgot something." Adrian stepped closer. "What?" The actor looked directly into the lens. "You haven't finished the film." The screen went black. Then the camera assistant screamed, "Director." Adrian turned. Every camera on the 10th floor had switched on, all by itself. Every monitor showed the same image. The 9th floor, the 8th floor, the staircase, the lobby, different angles, different cameras. But every screen showed the same thing. Adrian and his crew standing inside the building. The production manager looked at him. "We're watching ourselves." Adrian shook his head. "No." He looked at the timestamp. His face changed. The footage wasn't live. It was marked, tomorrow, 9:14 a.m. The room went silent. Adrian understood. The cameras weren't recording what was happening. They were recording what was going to happen. And then the footage changed. The crew began walking toward the staircase. One by one, they disappeared downstairs. Adrian watched himself on the monitor. His recorded version stopped, looked directly into the camera, and spoke. "Don't let us leave the building." The screen went black. Adrian immediately grabbed the camera. "We're leaving, now." They ran downstairs, the 9th floor, the 8th, the 7th, the 6th. They reached the lobby. The entrance doors were open. Sunlight poured inside. The crew rushed outside. Everyone stopped. Traffic, people, cars. The city was normal. Adrian looked at his watch. 9:14 a.m., the same time shown on the recording. He turned toward the building. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his phone vibrated. One new video file. No sender. No file name. He opened it. The footage showed the crew standing outside the building, exactly where they were now. Adrian watched himself in the video. His recorded version slowly turned toward the camera and smiled. Then the video ended. Adrian lowered the phone. The cameraman whispered, "Director." Adrian looked at him. The cameraman pointed toward the building. The 10th floor windows were reflecting the sunlight. But one window was different. Someone was standing behind it, watching them. Adrian zoomed in. His heart stopped. It was himself, standing on the 10th floor, watching the crew from inside. Then the figure lifted a hand and slowly waved. Adrian stepped backward. The building's entrance doors slammed shut. Everyone heard a faint sound from somewhere above them. A camera shutter, click, then another, click. Adrian looked at the cameraman. "Did you get that?" The cameraman nodded. Adrian swallowed. "Don't show me." He turned away from the building. The production manager asked, "What do we do now?" Adrian looked at the camera in his hand, then at the building, and quietly said, "We never filmed a horror movie here." He paused. The building filmed us. The camera light turned red, and somewhere inside the abandoned building, someone whispered, "Take 3. Cut to black. And that was the Unseen Hour. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more mysterious and unsettling stories. And remember, sometimes the scariest stories aren't the ones we imagine. They're the ones that might already be happening. Until the next story, stay curious, stay safe, and keep listening to the Unseen Hour. Good night.